Good afternoon and welcome into the Saints Insider postgame show. I'm Zach Ewing with Jim Derry here live from the Caesars Superdome, where the New England Patriots have defeated the New Orleans Saints 25-19 in this Week 6 Sunday, dropping the Saints, Jim, to 1-5.
Yeah, it's they keep throwing their heart out there, Zach. They keep playing it almost as best as they can. I think, defense had its issues at times for sure. Couldn't stop Drake May. Did okay stopping the run. Couldn't stop Drake May. But, in the end, they just weren't good enough.
Yeah, this is 4 home games now for the Saints. They're 1-3. And they have had the ball with a chance to tie or take the lead in all 4. Or obviously they won the one game. But in the other 3 games, they've had a chance to tie or take the lead in the fourth quarter. Today, those 2 chances ended with a controversial Juwan Johnson fumble at midfield after review. I
don't get it.
I mean, we don't get all the angles and don't have like super high definition replay, so it's maybe hard for us to say, but I did not see enough evidence to say that's conclusively a fumble. And then they got another chance and went 3 and out and had to punt with about 3.5 minutes left and all 3 timeouts. But New England got 2 first downs. Saints never get the ball back. And that's pretty much been the story of how this goes. Is they're not like this terrible team that can't compete, but they're just not quite good enough to beat a good team. Like, I mean, New England looks like a playoff team, and they're just not that good.
You look at other 1-4 teams or teams that are 1-4 or worse or whatever. And the Saints are probably better than every other 1-win team or no-win team out there. They're certainly better than the Jets, better than the Titans. I think no question. There's a lot of teams that they're better than, but at some point, that doesn't really mean much if you come out on a losing end. I mean, if you're getting yourself in position to win the game, but you're not winning the game, at some point you say, okay, it's just not good enough. And the Saints weren't good enough today.
We're taking your comments and questions live, so feel free to leave them on our YouTube page. All right, I think we are back here on the Saints Insider. Our internet connection here is a bit like the Saints red zone offense. Maybe that's just a sign from the powers that be, Collins, this maybe is not the time to discuss.
That's a tough question. I mean, look,
question.
Really, there are so many other things to talk about. The Saints have a lot of issues right now. Look, I think we all know what the Saints want to have, and I'm going to put it this way. Here, let's be nice. Let's put it this way. You know what the Saints want at quarterback? What was on the other side today? Drake May is shown how much he's improved in the same, basically, they've played almost the same amount of football games, Drake May and Spencer Rattler. It's real close. I know it's within a game or two. It's got to be. And Drake May looks like one of the top 5 or 8 quarterbacks in the NFL already.
Top 5. I don't know if I'd quite go that far yet.
Stats show that.
But he's been very good.
His passer rating is in the top 5. His yards are in the top 5.
Certainly the Patriots are very happy with what
Anyway, the point is where he's progressed already, that's what you want to have long term, okay? And the Saints are probably going to have a chance to have a decision at least to make on if they want to draft a franchise kind of quarterback in the first round of next year's draft. But we're getting way ahead of ourselves. But to answer the question, to start with asking a question about Spencer Rattler today, when I thought he was fine. He's been what he's been, except, I mean, he's been exactly what he's been to me for 6 games this year, and it's fine. But fine's not good enough in my opinion. He was okay. Wasn't good. He wasn't bad. He was fine.
Yeah, and at some point, and the Saints are 1-5, okay? And we are going to recap this game as we go, but since this was the first question, at some point, the Saints are 1-5. I don't think that Spencer Rattler is getting benched this week or anything. No. I think he's going to start in Chicago next week. I think he probably starts against Tampa Bay here in 2 weeks and maybe even beyond that. But at some point, as the losses pile up, whether it's 1-8 or 2-9 or 3-11 or whatever it is, at some point you are going to have to see what you have in Tyler Shuck. And that continues to be what we say. I think that Spencer Rattler has been good enough to where he's pushed that timeline back.
He's good enough to not have lost his job.
Right.
And that's about as good as he's been. He's been good enough not to have lost his job. But the Saints keep getting 1 touchdown, 1 touchdown, 2 touchdowns, 1 touchdown, 1 touchdown. You can't keep kicking field goals. You can't stall out before the 20. You know, you and I talked about it wasn't as much red zone as it was inside the 30. I don't know what they call that, but whatever it was inside the 30, the Saints were awful today. Again,
I agree. Yeah,
and they can't get any. This is a continuing problem. It's not just Spencer Rattler's fault, but it's a lot of them. It's a lot of people's fault, and it goes all the way up to the head coach, in my opinion. And they can't find a way to get better. And we're 6 games in. I know it's early still, but I mean that's a big problem, Zach. It really is.
Yeah. To your point, the Saints just 1 of 2 in the red zone today as far as touchdowns go, but they were inside the 30, I believe, 3 other times. And only got Blake Grupe field goals out of it. And now Blake Grupe, if you want to look at this positive, he was very good today. He was 4 of 4. They were all right down the middle, including a 54-yarder that made it a 1-possession game early in the fourth quarter. And so that's a positive because we had a lot of discussions about Blake Grupe after he missed a couple of field goals last week. So take that as a positive, but you don't want to see him 4 times in one game unless you've scored 50 points and he's just part of it. Like, they got 1 touchdown. It was on a Taysom Hill 3rd and 1 or 3rd and goal from the 1 running play. Taysom Hill can help you in those goal-to-go situations. He's not going to help you a lot cutting it from the 20 to the 5. Rattler did that once today. He had a nice scramble on that drive. He was moving the ball pretty well in the first half. And honestly, the Saints only punted twice, I believe, today. They moved the ball
not at all until the middle of the third quarter.
They moved the ball fine in between the 20s. Unfortunately, when you're getting 3s and you're facing Drake May and he's getting 6s and 7s and even 1-8 with the 2-point conversion right before half, it is difficult to keep up.
It is difficult to keep up. And look, meanwhile, New England was going down in the first half and scoring touchdowns. And so, I mean, did they take their foot off the gas? Maybe a little bit, but at some point, I'm sure we're going to talk about this. I thought this was one of the worst officiated games I've ever seen in the NFL in my life. I mean, I've been watching football since I was, what do they say, knee high to a grasshopper?
It was bizarre,
it was
world,
awful.
Man.
It was, and in both ways, it was awful.
Both teams had a couple of,
an offensive pass interference call on Stephon Diggs that there's no one around. I mean, it was horrendous. It was horrendous. And then they turn around.
The officials are throwing a flag right now.
Oh, okay.
I just have my hand on your shoulder.
It wouldn't surprise me at all. And then on the other hand,
that's all he did.
I thought the Jawan Johnson, you and I kind of talked about in the press box, at the bare minimum, I don't think there was enough there to overturn it. Not only did I not, I know we disagree on this, but not only did I not think there was not enough to overturn it, I thought had they called it the other way, I thought there was enough to overturn it that the Saints should have kept the football.
Yeah, it's tough because
either way,
the ball was moving a little bit. Again, we don't have access to the same number of replays and quality of replays. So
then there was earlier in the game, there was a call that went against Diggs that I thought was a really bad call. And then they had a makeup
on
call,
the very next
a phantom in a pass interference call on the Saints that I still don't understand.
It's like you're admitting that the
really
previous call was bad. There was a holding call, talking about the red zone. Rattler had a completion to Devon Vele in that first half that would have given the Saints 1st and goal. There was a holding call on Kelvin Banks I really didn't like via replay. It looked like the defensive lineman slipped,
100%.
And they called it a hold on Banks. And I understand missed calls will happen. These are big men moving fast,
right?
And sometimes you miss calls. But the number of I just this officiating crew should be ashamed of itself.
Yeah, it was really bad.
It was really bad.
Did it change the outcome of the game?
I don't
would
think
say
the wrong
no.
team won or anything, but
Yeah.
it was bad.
The team that was supposed to win, in my opinion, won. But at the same time, if you're the NFL and you're judging officials, you can't have those sorts of calls.
God of Fire says if Rattler played the Saints defense, he'd have 4 TDs a game.
Oh my God, that's not true. It's not true.
It's
not like he played a great defense today, because he didn't.
Spencer Rattler has played all manners of defense. He's never had more than 3 touchdowns in a game. That only happened once. So I don't think we can go that far.
I mean, what makes anyone think that this defense that the Saints played against today was good? Because they weren't.
They're not.
They weren't very good.
They got blown out by the Raiders. They've had games. They needed to work to beat Miami in a shootout. This is not a very good defense that New England has, especially against the pass.
You also have to remember, you were getting this team at as good a possible game as you could get. They were coming off a Sunday night game at Buffalo where they won in an emotional against a division rival. Other than getting them on a short week, you can't possibly get a team at a better time than the Saints were getting the Patriots today. And they still only put up 19 points. So.
Yeah, I just Spencer Rattler, his strengths are that he's athletic. I think he's a good leader. He tends to make quick decisions, which I think is a good thing for where the Saints are right now. Those will all help you between the 20s. Once you get down to, to woodcut and time inside the 20, you need to be on point. And you need to be able to go through progression sometimes. And that's where I think his weaknesses come into play.
I had a good friend of mine text me before the game who is a fan of Rattlers and said, the kid plays his butt off.
He does.
Well, he does. But that's so what? I mean, there's a lot of other players that play that. I mean, that's great, but that's not the criteria. I mean, it's a criteria for being an NFL player, but it's not the criteria for whether you're a starting quarterback in the NFL or not. Again, look, I'm not blaming anything, and I blame nothing today from today's game on Spencer Rattler. He was fine. He wasn't good. He wasn't bad. Nothing. But don't come in here. I'm sure we're gonna have a Chris Olave comment at some point. He caught 6 catches for 98 yards today. Rattler threw for like 240.
Jim, I swear you can't see my phone. Spencer is producing the show and is sending me some of your comments. After I read God of Fire's comment, I'm behind a little bit, but Taylor DeMarco, this isn't exactly what you're talking about, but there's more. It's time to rip the Band-Aid off and trade Olave while he's worth something. The drops have been a killer.
It's insane.
Can I keep going? Just
please. It's
from
insane.
Isidro, Olave and Juwan Johnson are not clutch players. And from Kyle Lusher, Rattler played great. His receivers failed him, and defense didn't make clutch stops. Rattler didn't play bad. I do not think he played bad today.
I don't think he played bad either.
But
there was one play where we throw Shaheed by 4 feet.
The play that y'all are referencing for Olave, because Chris Olave had 6 catches for 98 yards today. The play you're referencing was on that final drive where the Saints end up having to punt. And he did drop a ball, but it would have been a very good catch. He had to go up the elevator to get to that ball in the first place, and then he drops it on the way down. I don't think you can sit there and say, oh, you have to catch that ball. He also had one in the end zone that was off his fingertips. You and I disagreed on this. I thought he could have come up with it. It was a difficult catch. You do see guys come up with it throughout the league. I think Olave is a little bit of a 1B receiver. I don't think he's a 1A. He's good. I just don't know.
People keep calling out to trade Olave. For what? What are you going to get for Olave? Why would you trade? Okay, even if let's say he's a number 2 receiver. Okay, let's go far as to say because there's no. If you think he's not a number 2, if you don't think he's between 33rd and 64th in the NFL among receivers, then you probably should be doing something else besides watching football because you don't know what you're talking about. So let's just say, okay, for argument's sake, that he's a 2. What do you think you're going to get for a Chris Olave at the trade deadline? Maybe if you're lucky, a 3rd-round pick. Probably more like a 4th-round pick. So do you trade a guy who could be at worst a solid 2, and I still think he's a 1. I agree with you.
From a roster that is not deep in receivers. I mean,
it's insane.
The Saints don't have a lot to trade from there. They've been trying to add to that room. They've traded for Devon Vele. They traded for Jalen Polk. They're trying to add to that room. I don't think trading Olave.
It's never going to happen anyway.
It doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
It's a waste of time.
Anyway,
it's a waste of argument. It's never going to happen. They're not going to trade Olave.
We'll go through this one a little bit, Jim. Saints actually started this thing out speaking of Chris Olave, on fire with Olave dusted his coverage. Rattler hits him. It was maybe a tiny bit underthrown, but a pretty good throw. Olave gets 53 yards.
Perfect example of what we've been talking about. They get the long play right off the bat, and then what happens? They have to settle for a field goal.
And by the way, then the Patriots get their own 53-yard play where Drake May hits Pop Douglas in stride. A little bit, just those minute differences, but that leads to a touchdown. 7-3. Saints go down and get a field goal. Patriots go down and get another touchdown. 14-6. I mean, that was just the way this thing went.
And look, and here's the thing, and Jeff Duncan's here, so I'm gonna hand the mic off in just a second. But this is the last thing I'll say, and this is on a positive note. Okay, for Saints fans, this is what you should be taking away from this team. This is not a winning football team right now. It just isn't. No one, and realistically, thought that this was a winning football team this season. However, the fact that they're getting them in themselves in these situations, I think can only help them for later on, because you hope that whether it's Spencer Rattler, Tyler Shuck, or someone they draft, whoever it is next year, if they keep getting themselves in these situations, you have to hope that this is going to pay off next year and that they can take that next step earlier rather than later. And I think, again, as much as it stinks and we could sit here and break down this play or that play and the minutia, and this player dropped this ball and did whatever, they're getting themselves, they're already, even though their record stinks, I think they're already better than most people thought they would be at this time, and that is a positive, and that's what I'm going to at least try to take out of this game.
And I agree with you. I mean, again, the Saints have played 6 games. They've only been blown out once. Okay, the game in Seattle was a disaster. Correct. They lost by 12 at Buffalo, but they had a chance to take the lead in the fourth quarter of that game as well. So you can't really say they got blown out. Every other game has been a 1-score game except for the one that they won, which was a 2-score win. So, and they needed 5 turnovers to get that game. They're just at a point where they're good enough to compete and not good enough to win without some breaks. Right.
And I'll leave you with this. Go beat Dennis Allen next week. That'll make a lot of things feel better, won't it?
That definitely will. All right, we're going to let Jim Derry go. You can catch him on the Datitude podcast every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And here comes Times-Picayune columnist Jeff Duncan studying the stat sheet. What are your takeaways from the Saints' latest loss here, Jeff?
Well, it's starting to sound like a broken record. I mean, if you heard Spencer Rattler in there, he repeated himself about 10 times of, hey, we just got to be better. We got to execute better. We're a better team than our record shows. I mean, it's starting to sound a lot like some other teams I've covered over the years where, kind of a loser's lament where you're talking about this play or that play, but you're still just not getting it done. And that's kind of where this team's at right now. They're, I think, competitive. They're certainly not embarrassing in any ways. They're not getting blown out, but they're just coming up short enough times that that's what kind of bad losing teams do. I know it sounds like you're close, but when you can't win like that, you're not either good enough or you're not executing enough to beat these teams at this level. And we just see it time and time again. I mean, there's a fumble here, it's a drop ball there, it's a missed tackle there. I mean, really kind of, going back and looking it over, I know there's a controversial call on Jawan Johnson, but, going back and looking at the pass interference call against Stephon Diggs, I mean, I don't know.
It was one of the worst officiated games I can remember.
Yeah, I mean, like that took a touchdown away from New England. But anyway, just a really frustrating game. And, these games like this, Zach, will start to add up. They'll have a cumulative effect when you keep losing games like this. So they've got to find a way to gain some confidence, get a lead. Again, they're playing from behind most of the game like they did again today. It's just a very familiar pattern to these games where they fall behind quickly, they play catch up, they don't quit, but they're just not good enough to get over the hump.
Yeah, the Saints had 2 leads today at 3-0. That lasted, I think, 4 plays. Yep. And then that 16-14, that lasted a few more plays, but you still give up the touchdown to New England on the very next drive, and it's 22-16, and you're just chasing. And I turned to Jim and to Rod Walker late in the game, and I said, even if the Saints had the ball down 25-19, hey, they could go score here. It wouldn't shock me if they did and took the lead. But does anybody actually think they're stopping Drake May down, when he's down just by a point in the final minutes? I don't think they're at that point.
Yeah, and I think what you saw was Mike Vrabel pretty much managing the game that way. Like I think he felt like, let our defense, let's not do anything dumb on offense. They got a little conservative there, I thought, but I think they felt just like what you said. Even if the Saints did manage to drive down, score a touchdown, they could win it with a field goal. Is what I think he felt like. But the Saints offense, as we've seen, really struggles to score touchdowns in the red zone. I know they were only 1 for 2 on the stat sheet, but that didn't include another time when they reached the 20 and another time they reached the 27 and settled for field goals. Now, the good news is Blake Grupe seemed to find his groove. He was 4 for 4, including a 54-yarder, I think it was. So that's good news. But they got to find a way to execute better. And I thought Kellen Moore afterwards said, something he said before, that is he kind of put it on himself, saying the play calling isn't very good down there. I also just think the execution's not very good. They've had some, they failed to connect Olave and Rattler on a ball that was, right there. For whatever reason, even though Olave's got a lot of numbers, he's clearly leading the team in receiving, they just seem to be a little bit off in their connections on the big plays like that. I know they hit that big play on the first play of the game, but they also had a big drop late in the game that was really critical.
Yeah. That one was the one where he kind of had to go up for the ball. It wasn't a real accurate throw. But that's kind of what you're getting at, is that Rattler could be slightly more accurate on these throws, but Olave could also help him out a little bit more.
Yeah.
And it's the sum of the parts is not equaling what it should.
I thought Rattler, jumped either, he didn't really need to jump that high. He just made it. Felt
Olave,
Olave. I'm sorry, Olave. It felt like he made that catch a lot harder than it really needed to be. It wasn't accurate, but he kind of looked like he was a little gun shy there, waiting for a hit as well. And we know that his history with that is, I think, certainly factored in. But all in all, like, I think this team, I like some of the things they're doing. I think offensively, they seem to move the ball almost at will at sometimes. I mean, they scored on 5 of their first 6 possessions, a number of 10, 9, and play drives where they're stringing together long drives, executing much better. They're kind of eliminating most of those pre-snap penalties that hounded them early in the year. So there's areas where they are improving. They struggled to run the ball today, but that's kind of goes with the territory against this New England defense. They're one of the top 5 run defenses in the league. So that wasn't surprising, but that short passing game is something they can lean on. Spencer Rattler looks very comfortable executing it. He's not putting the ball. I know he had one turnover-worthy play over the middle, but otherwise he's really not putting the ball in harm's way. And I know they had the late fumble from Juwan Johnson, but that was just a really good play by the defense. I know fans are all over Juwan Johnson. I know he's got to hang on to it there, but those things happen in an NFL game. For the most part, the Saints have been very good as far as takeaway, giveaway ratio. They haven't given the ball away very much. That's only their second fumble the whole season.
Yeah. It's just to wrap things up with you, Jeff. The Saints are 1-5, but they have played. I mean, look, San Francisco looks like a playoff team. Seattle looks like a playoff team. This New England team looks like they're going to make the playoffs. Buffalo certainly a playoff team. The only teams that they played who probably aren't playoff teams are the Giants, who they beat, and then the Arizona Cardinals, who they had a shot to beat certainly in week 1. I don't think this team is like, we just got to come in from Hakeem saying, might as well have the fire sale. We need picks and offers for high price bets. I don't think we're there yet. Right. Even if this team, sure, they're not going to make the playoffs, but they still seem like they're fighting for wins, and we'll get some more.
Well, I would say this. I do think the front office has to consider, thinking about the future. We see them already starting to work in. They worked in Danny Stutzman into a few reps today on defense. At one point, they had 3 rookies playing on defense at one time. So they're clearly managing for the future while trying to remain competitive and compete and win today. But I don't think that's out of the question at some point here. You're 1-5. The likelihood of making the playoffs is very remote right now. Yeah. Do you start thinking about making some deals if you need to, if it'll make your future better? Because that's what this team's about right now, is the future.
I think 3 games left before the trade deadline.
Right.
There's the Chicago game, Tampa Bay, and then Carolina, I believe.
Yeah, but I would say the other positive thing on this is the team. I know Kelvin Banks went out a little bit with a little bit of a knee injury, but he came back in. But this team's probably one of the more healthy teams in the entire NFL. The whole offensive line was out there intact today. Really, their whole offense was intact pretty much for the most part today. And, there is reason to believe, with these other teams, you see their injury list piling up, that they can get a couple of victories. I just think it might be futile at this point when you're such a deep hole at 1-5.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, he's Jeff Duncan. You can read his work at NOLA.com
Thanks.
and at Times-Picayune, and we will let him make the handoff. It looks like Matthew Paris, one of our beat writers, is coming next. Matt, fresh from the Saints press conference and locker room, your takeaways on a 25-19 loss today.
Yeah, I think that was the most frustrated I've seen Kellen Moore yet as head coach after one of these losses. He was really emphasizing the game on the margins. You could see it during this game with a couple of notable Chris Olave drops, the fumble. Their defense, once again, got off to a slow start. I thought Spencer Rattler played really well, and that's kind of what my game story was about, is like kind of, like compared and contrast Drake May, them being in the same draft class.
Yeah.
But, Rattler kept pace, but it wasn't enough to upset the Patriots.
Frustration oftentimes leads to changes. Do you see any change? I mean, are the Saints still status quo, at least for a little bit longer?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think you saw some of the changes today a little bit, putting Stutzman in on some key situations. That was to get him more into the field. But, you saw it with Quincy Riley before Ike Adam got hurt, is they're increasing these young guys' role more and more, and then eventually they replace him. I don't know if that's going to happen with Pete Werner, but I thought that was a really interesting development coming out of this game.
Yeah. Once again, Saints have a chance with the ball a couple times in the fourth quarter. One ends on the Juwan Johnson fumble, which we can talk about that review and what the meaning of the word indisputable is. I don't know,
Yeah.
But the other one ends with a 3-and-out. Like it's just, again, kind of Jeff and I were just talking about this. When you're a good team, you find a way to make those big plays. When you're a bad team, the other team usually finds a way to make those plays.
Yeah, I mean, you can be upset over the fumble, but, I mean, the Patriots, they would have lost this game. I mean, their fans would have been enormously upset over those two offensive pass interference penalties. One they scored and ended up touchdown on, but the other one they didn't. And those were just as bad as the Carl Granderson passing or the
roughing the passer,
passer last week. And so, this referee crew is not very good today, I thought, but you can't let that affect you, and you have to go on, and the Patriots did, and the Saints, didn't.
The Patriots have Drake May, who was fantastic today, and I think is showing he's already like a top 10 quarterback in this league. When you look at Rattler, is that ceiling there? I mean, this is really the big question the Saints need to answer over these last 10 weeks.
Well, he's not a top 10, but I think he's a guy that you can at least be competitive with to win games with. I don't know. I mean, that's what this season is going to be about. I mean, they're 1-11 with him now. He's playing. It's just, I guess to me, the question is how much more can Spencer Rattler improve? Because his first year to his second year, he improved at a really impressive rate. I think his improvements are real this season. I don't think it's necessarily just a matter of like Kellen Moore calling better plays for him or emphasizing checkdowns. Like, I think he's made some meaningful improvements. It's just like, what is his ceiling, and can he get to that next level? I'm still skeptical on.
Yeah. All right. Your final thoughts, Matt, as the Saints fall to 1-5, and they're obviously not the worst team in the NFL or anything. They're not embarrassing. They're just not quite there.
No, I mean, I think the way that they've played these games makes them a good candidate for improving next year. You think about that Bill Barnwell column in ESPN every year of which teams are most likely to improve, and he always cites the scores in one-score games, and the Saints have lost 3 games by 7 points or less. Like, that's going to eventually turn around, and you think about another offseason of getting better players or improving the roster a little bit more. I think as long as Kellen Moore continues to show improvement, then they should be in a pretty good shape.
Yeah. All right, he's Matthew Paris. You can read his game story right now on NOLA.com. He'll update it later, and his work all week long in the Times-Picayune. Thanks, Matt. All right, we'll let him hand that off to Luke, and Brian Cabot updates his 49ers Fred Warner gruesome ankle injury. Trade them to Mario? Maybe he gets a – it's never going to stop, man. We got 3 more weeks of this.
Yeah. There's going to be a lot of trade deadline chatter around the Saints for sure. And I mean, games like today is only ramps that up, where they have everybody. I mean, they had everybody at their disposal today. Right, only one player on the active 53-man roster, not on IR, missed because of injury today, and they still couldn't get it done. So I think stuff like that is gonna make that trade chatter even louder than usual.
Yeah, no doubt, and that is the big picture here. Is the Saints are 1-5, and Matt, we just got done saying they're 0-3 in one possession games. Like, it could be better. They're close, but at some point, as October melts into November, it's time to face reality here, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's like such an interesting dynamic talking to these guys about it, where it's just like every game, it seems like if you make like a play here, a play there, it's potentially a different outcome in the game. I mean, today you could look at Chris Olave's drop on 2nd and 7 down here, would have moved the chains, so it would have put him near midfield and a good chance of going for the go-ahead score. He can't make the play. 3rd down pass is incomplete. Juwan Johnson's fumble at midfield. There's the Chris Olave, the pass to Chris Olave in the end zone on 3rd down, where it's like a wheel route. He ran a great route
off his fingertips.
So I was talking to Foster Moreau about it after the game, and he's like, "This is like the constant battle you're facing between process and results. Where the process feels good, and you look back at it, you're like, there's so many things we like about this, and then the results aren't there. So it's like you gotta be super, super critical about your process and getting to the results you want. But like the fact is, they are 1-5 right now, and they've played a lot of competitive games. They've done a lot of things really well. We're talking about, Spencer Rattler is looking like a legitimate NFL starting quarterback, and yet they score 1 touchdown today and they lose the game by 6 points. So like you gotta look at this whole thing through a microscope and say like, okay, like who are the guys that are going to be part of this long term, and let's keep thinking about the future, because this year is I think we can fairly say right now this year is not the future. This is
At some point, math is math.
That's right
when it comes to playoff odds and things like that. Starting with the offense, your big picture takeaway from today. I mean, again, played pretty well, especially can't even really say between the 20s, between the 30s. It seemed like they bogged down, I think once at like the 26, once at the 20, and then once in the red zone itself.
Yeah, I think I can't remember at what point of the game it was, but they'd had 6 real possessions, not counting the one where they had one play at the end of the half, right? 6 real possessions. They only punted 1 time. They didn't turn the ball over, and they had 4 field goals and a touchdown to show for it. So I guess the 19 points.
Yeah.
It's like that's a thing where it's just like they're doing so much well offensively right now, and they still just can't crack through. Even last week's game, they beat the Giants. They had 1 offensive touchdown. We're talking about 2 offensive touchdowns in 2 weeks, where the margin of victory the scoring margins. The Saints are up 5 points, right?
Sure.
Plus 5 in those 2 games. They scored 2 touchdowns in those 2 games. So it's like the execution on the important plays is just not there for this team. And you got to look at who's doing it. I mean, Chris Olave had the best game of his season today, but all that anybody's going to be talking about afterwards are the plays he didn't make.
Right.
And there's a lot of that going around right now. Juwan Johnson, had that fumble by midfield where that was, I think, only his 2nd catch of the game, and he makes a good play on it, and then ball gets punched out at the end. He thinks he has it, he doesn't. It's like those things are the things that are separating the Saints between like being 1-5 and I don't know 3-3 right now. They just can't make the big plays in the big moments.
And then on the defensive side, we can make this a Drake May takeaway if we want, because I thought he was really good at times today. But Saints defense, they did make some plays in the second half to at least give their team a chance. Overall,
but they're just making it too easy on. May made some just phenomenal plays. That first touchdown to Booty was unreal. On the move, puts it exactly on the spot in a tightly contested window to Kayshon Boutte with Kool-Aid McKinstry in coverage. And I don't know what you do against that, other than McKinstry making a better play on the ball, snapping his head around, but he was right there, and he made a number of plays like that where you're like, holy crap, this guy's awesome. But there were also just way too many plays in this game where Saints were in off coverage, giving them the easy throws, and I think that's got to be something they evaluate. Even getting Chase Young back today, he got so much attention from the Patriots. They were constantly double teaming him, chipping him with the running back, chipping him with the tight end. That should open up opportunities for other people to win one-on-ones. They just didn't do anything with it.
Yeah.
So I think that's a side of the ball that I think has just been a little disappointing this year, just in how easy they've made it look for other teams sometimes. They got to kind of just evaluate what they're doing there now that they've got kind of a full complement of players.
Those who, talking about Drake May and the Patriots offense, those who watched Friday Saints Insider know Booty is good as well. I had to go.
Come on, man.
I had to go.
Every time he made a play, Matt is looking back at Rod and they're sharing their laugh on the inside joke. Yeah.
So, yeah, you got to go back and watch Friday Saints Insider. Don't worry about my prediction or anything, but just, although I did have Blake Grupe hitting a long field goal, just under different circumstances. So
I had 26-20 for this one. That was pretty close.
You were. And Grupe looked good. Oh, you were very close. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. He's Luke Johnson. You can read his work again at NOLA.com. We're going to let him hand off to our final writer here, our final guest, Rod Walker, who's deep in intense conversation with Matt and Jeff. Here he comes. What's the discussion over there, Rod?
We were talking about some of the officiating and the pass interference on Diggs. Like, we thought none of us thought it was a pass interference, so we were just kind of discussing that play.
There were so many calls. I mean, like I think Matt said, if the Patriots somehow lost this game, I mean, you could hear their fans from here crying in the Northeast about some of those calls. And then likewise, there was the defensive pass interference right after the OPI. That's like, what was that? And then the fumble review where you're going, how do you overturn that? I mean, there was so many head scratching. I thought the holding call in Kelvin Banks that was important early was a little bit iffy as well. Like there was so many calls. I don't know.
And then there was the challenge that they didn't challenge it, but the 1-2 Olave. I think the Patriots probably would have won a challenge there. It didn't matter because the Saints had to punt anyway, so it didn't matter. But
yeah, it's just difficult. It's a difficult game to officiate at this speed and this level, but man, it's got to be better than that, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway, your big picture takeaways from today. Another Saints close loss.
Yeah, I think for me, the big pictures, I think that, and we probably already knew this, but this is just who this team is. They're good enough to hang around, but just not quite good enough to win the games. And they've lost, 3 games by 7 points or less. And these are games that when this team gets it all together and get all the pieces together and, and I mean, this might be down the road, but I think these are games that, maybe they'll pull out and win, but right now they're just not quite there yet. Just little plays like Chris Olave dropped. To me, he should have caught the pass in the end zone. He could have caught the pass that would have maybe kept a drive alive.
Mm-hmm.
The Juwan fumble obviously was a big one. So, I mean, it's just too many of those plays that it's kind of the same thing we've been saying all season long about this team. So,
yeah, a comment from the Northern Saint. Spence is good, but why do we take Tyler with our second pick and not find out? I mean, I think part of that is that I'm not sure they expected Spencer Rattler to improve to this degree.
Yeah, I mean, he's played really well. I don't think he's done enough to be benched yet. I do think before the season's over, last 4 or 5 games, I think we probably see him at some point because you do need to see what you got in him. But and that was one thing Kellen said. He didn't want to rush him. I mean, he wants to develop him and make him a quarterback. I don't think he's there yet because if he was there, he would have, perhaps won the training camp battle or something. But, I mean, we'll see him at some point this season, though, for sure.
Elsewhere on offense, again, it's just we keep saying red zone. They were inside the 30, not the 20, but it's when the field gets short, that's when you see this team start to struggle.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that I talked to a couple of guys about it. Cesar Ruiz talked about it, and he was just saying how, they got to learn to finish these drives, and they need to get 7 points instead of 3 points. There was a time when they weren't even getting 3 points. So it was good to see them getting those 3 points today. Blake Grupe had a bounce-back game, made – I think it was 4 for 4 on field goals. Made a long one, too, a 54-yarder. So it was good to see him get back on track. But at some point, this team needs to get all 3 phases on track at the same time, and it just hasn't happened. Like at the beginning of the game today, the defense started out the gate really slow, gave up the big play. Then they kind of settled down, I felt like, in the end, but the offense, couldn't get it going. So it's just a matter of this team putting all 3 phases together. I mean, that's what good teams do, and this isn't a good team right now.
No, it's not happening. Saints go to Chicago next week. Rod, we'll be talking about it all week. It's the Dennis Allen revenge game, I guess, for both sides.
Yeah, I mean, I know he'll be – I'm sure if there's any game that Dennis Allen wants to win, it'll be this. So he'll be – and when we know how good of a defensive coach he is, he'll be studying film of the Saints and have everything figured out. And it's also the Caleb Williams versus Spencer Rattler game. That's the guy who Spencer Rattler lost his job to in Oklahoma and ended up transferring to South Carolina. So, but yeah, Dennis Allen's going to be the big story this week. And looking forward to seeing how the Saints
I can
do in
see
Chicago.
Kendra Miller doing the Cam Scatterbo and like beating his head against the wall to fire himself up before the game.
Yeah.
Like it'll be fun. But I think big picture, just to close things out, Rod, like the Saints are 1-5, and we've been saying this for a few weeks. At some point, the losses pile up to a point where you do talk about, okay, is there anybody we could trade and get back value for? When do you start to turn to the young guys? We saw Danny Stutzman today. Talk about Tyler Shuck sooner or later is going to get his chance. Are we at that point in your opinion, or do we still have a few weeks where the Saints are just going to, go all out to win these games?
I think you're still at that point. I mean, I think Chicago's a game that you look at and you say, okay, this is winnable, and then it's Tampa Bay after that. Tampa Bay's after that. That'll be their first division game. I mean, we're kind of late in the season. They haven't played a division game yet. So I think you kind of wait till after that, and then you'll kind of gauge a little bit better. But, I mean, they're getting close to that point. But that's one of the things Justin Reed talked about at the podium today was that, as a veteran, he's going to do what he can to make sure this team stays together. And, they're not really ready to throw it in yet. But, and again, I think playing close games kind of keeps you, wanting to continue to compete. So as long as they keep doing that, I think they'll probably keep competing.
All right, so there you have it. Saints lose this one 25-19 to the New England Patriots. This has been the Saints Insider Postgame Show. Our producer was Spencer Urquhart, Norman Bell, the cameraman, and, of course, Jim Derry, Jeff Duncan, Matt Paris, Luke Johnson, and Rod Walker joining me as guests. I'm Zach Ewing. We will see you Wednesday with the next Saints Insider podcast. Keep it locked to our YouTube channel, Apple Podcast feed, Spotify, all that good stuff, and we will see you next time.